Greetings, snow lovers. This is Scott with the Avalanche Center with your final weekend update of the year, April 7th, 2023. And just a general reminder, this product is not meant to replace the daily avalanche forecast, so please check the forecast each morning at 7 a.m. So we'll take a quick look at what happened over the past week, what's happening now, and what we expect to happen this weekend and moving into next week. Beginning last Saturday, we received a widespread 12 to 18 inches throughout the forecast area, a little bit more in the northern Sawtooths and Banner Summit areas. Most of that fell on last Saturday. As you can see, we had avalanche warnings with high danger in effect on Saturday and Sunday to get last weekend rolling with a pretty vigorous storm. Saw a ton of natural avalanche activity, some quite large avalanches, D3s, which are big enough to destroy houses, like the one that was on the title slide there, and some others. Then the avalanche danger gradually decreased as the snowpack adjusted to that new load, but we kept seeing avalanches and people were continuing to remotely trigger avalanches. That means triggering avalanches from the sides, below, or above steep slopes. So you didn't even have to be on the slope to trigger an avalanche. Most of those this week, while the danger was considerable, were 1 to 2 feet thick, and predominantly on slopes where there were crust and facet combinations, so on east through south through west-facing slopes. Although there were some remotely triggered avalanches also involving crusts on northeast aspects too, which was a little bit interesting. So this is an example of one of those. This was remotely triggered by some snowmobilers in a meadow off to the side of this steep slope, so they weren't on the slope when it failed. This avalanche was up near Copper Mountain in the Thatcher Creek area, west of Stanley, and over 1,000 feet wide, spanned east and southeast aspects at around 8,500 feet. That was just a couple days ago on Wednesday. Yesterday, so the day after that, Ben was up in the Sawtooth Mountains and saw several sizable natural wet loose avalanches. So the mountains were starting to cleanse themselves with the slightly warmer temperatures. We've been in kind of that Arctic freeze with temperatures running like 20 degrees below normal, seemingly forever. And things warmed up just a little bit of sun, and that was enough to get some sizable wet loose activity going in the right terrain on what we call solar slopes, so those that are directly facing the sun, kind of southeast and east in this case. And also on Thursday, Ben did see some slab avalanches that maybe there was a little bit of wet loose snow from wet loose slides coming down, and that was enough to trigger just a tiny bit of wet loose avalanche activity to trigger these more sizable 1 to 2 foot thick slab avalanches, again on a southeast aspect near 8,800 feet in this case in the northern Sawtooth Mountains. So the present today on Friday, it's moderate danger, widespread throughout the forecast area. And now the important question, $1 million question that you're all waiting for, what's going to happen going forward? So looking at the weather this weekend, we're going to get some snow tonight. Probably a widespread 1 to 3 inches throughout the forecast area on Friday night. Some areas could get skunked and see 0. Some areas could get a little more in that 4 to 6 inch range. Fickle spring weather. It all depends. It's hard to pinpoint snowfall amounts beforehand. And then we see a gradual clearing trend with partly to mostly cloudy skies on Saturday, and then becoming more clear to partly cloudy on Sunday. Take a little bit closer look at that going into it. So this weekend, again, we see 1 to 3 inches of snow tonight, mostly cloudy to partly cloudy skies in the northern and western mountains, and partly cloudy to clear skies in the Soldier Wood River Valley areas. Temps should reach about 30, be right around freezing at middle elevations tomorrow on Saturday, and bump up by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit to approaching 40 degrees on Sunday. So it's going to feel really hot. We haven't had temperatures that warm in some time. It should be freezing at night though, so we should get a good freeze in the snowpack and generally light winds. So the danger and problems this weekend, we're going to begin a big transition to, we've been living in a very much wintertime snowpack for way longer than we usually do. So all of March, basically, we haven't dealt with wet avalanches for the most part. So we'll continue to see those dry, persistent slab avalanches, like the couple photos that I showed were of remote triggered avalanches and natural avalanches. And those, they may, over the course of the weekend, morph into more of a wet slab problem, which doesn't really change things that much. They're still unpredictable. You can remotely trigger these avalanches. One difference is if we get enough water melting in the upper part of the snowpack and moving down and getting those weak layers wet, that they could release naturally on their own. And then we're also going to see an increasing both frequency and size in the wet loose avalanches. So initially we'll see them within the new snow that falls Friday night and the newer snow. Sorry about my dog. And the newer snow that has fallen over the past week, as that snow gets wet for the first time, sitting on top of crusts especially, we'll see wet loose avalanches coming down. And we could, in the areas where the snowpack's thinner, see some gouging wet loose avalanches that gouge down to layers deeper within the snowpack or even close to the ground. And that's more where the snowpack is less than 2 or 3 feet thick. These wet loose avalanches will spread to more aspects probably by Sunday and then especially into next week. But I think northwest aspects, they're getting enough sun this time of the year in April that they could become problematic with wet avalanches. One other thing to consider is cornices. So we have some really large cornices this year from the just extended, really snowy, wintry weather that we've had. And as these things get warm and start to melt and water percolates down through the snowpack where you have overhanging cornices, they're going to sag or collapse. So really pay attention to what's above you as you're traveling out in the mountains, both from the threat of cornices and just wet loose avalanches. So it's not just the slope that you're on. You really need to pay attention to what's above you if you're out and about this weekend enjoying the great outdoors. So moving ahead into next week, you can see there on the far left, that taller blue bar is the snowfall we're getting tonight on Friday. And then we do start to get some more unsettled weather. Right now, the weather models, they keep flip-flopping back and forth between whether it's going to be wet or dry in that Tuesday to Friday period. As of now, they're thinking that we're going to see some light precipitation, a few inches of snow, but that could easily change in the coming days. More importantly is the temperatures. Monday looks to be the warmest day, where it's approaching 50 degrees up at middle elevations between 8,000 and 9,000 feet in the mountains, and then barely or not freezing at night, Monday night. We'll see what happens. And then as of now, it shows a cooling trend through midweek and then warming back up for next weekend. So we get another round of the wet loose activity. Who knows if the weather forecast isn't accurate, it may not end. It may just keep going for the next week or so. So next week, yeah, the danger is going to be driven by those wet problems, wet loose and wet slabs. In general, snowpacks don't react well when the faceted layers, so that weak sugary snow, gets wet for the first time. So we'd expect to see some strange avalanches, some large avalanches, and potentially just a giant shed cycle where the mountains effectively cleanse themselves of all that cold powder that's fallen in March. So expect elevated danger and considerable, possibly high, especially if we don't get freezing temperatures for 1 or 2 nights somewhere in there, that things could come unglued. Shady middle and lower elevation slopes, so northwest, north, and northeast aspects, those will become scary with the threat of wet avalanches, which is hard to picture with how cold it's been, but that can change really quickly. So expect a pretty dramatic change there in what the snowpack's like on those shady slopes below 9,000 feet. And with that uncertain weather forecast, there's still a lot of uncertainty with what's going to happen once we get beyond Sunday, really. So stay tuned to the forecast there. A lot's going to depend on if it does actually freeze at night or not. The best advice that we can give you is when things do get really hot, for the first time and start pushing water down into a snowpack like this, a really abrupt transition, the best thing to do is to get some popcorn, sit back and enjoy the show, stay out of the way. Things get avalanche conditions do tend to get really unpredictable. It becomes really difficult to really nail the stability on a slope scale, and things can change incredibly rapidly, like in minutes, not even hours. So be careful out there, and have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C if you're out and about having fun. So please do check the forecast at 7 a.m. each morning. You can sign up to have it emailed to you. At the bottom of every page on the website, you can just enter your email address, and then it'll show up in your inbox. And really importantly, please let us know what you're seeing out there. We're kind of starved for observations right now. Things have really dropped off as far as the amount of people traveling. So let us know what you're seeing. Zip us a text. That's a text number right there. You can write that down, put it in your phone, please. That goes to all the folks at the Avalanche Center. So send us a picture of any avalanches you see and just let us know where they were, what aspect, what elevation. Send us a picture if you don't see any avalanches of just having a great time, and let us know where you were. You can also email us, tag us on social media, or fill out the observation form at the bottom of every page on the website. There's a nice blue button, submit observation. And we're not looking for detailed information in snow pits. We just want to know where you went. Did you see any avalanches? Maybe the snowpack got so wet that you weren't able to stay on top. It became unsupportable, so you're falling down deep into the snowpack. That's huge information for us. With that, have a good time and make good decisions out there. Thanks for watching.